So my talk title today is the F word. Yes, I'm fully aware that this usually refers to a bad word that begins with the letter F, and seeing that you're at a spiritual center, you probably are not expecting that sort of a title to be discussed at a place like this. That is, unless, of course, we're talking about a different F word, you naughty people. Because there are actually many spiritual words that begin with the letter F. For instance, we've got faith, freedom, friendship, fabulousness, fellowship, fearlessness, and fun, just to name a few. And I could honestly do a Sunday talk on any of these words and call it the F word. And chances are, hopefully, it would be positive and it would be uplifting and thought-provoking, and it would give you some tools to take away with you to make your life better, because that's the idea. However, the F word that I'm talking about today is neither the bad one nor any of these listed here. Although when I tell you what it is, you might think it's kind of a bad word because there's a lot of energy around it. And that word for today is forgiveness. I chose the topic forgiveness very deliberately today because of the date today and what it represents. This is the 15-year anniversary of 9/11. It's been 15 years, can you believe it? It's been 15, sometimes it seems like it was yesterday. For this generation, this is the question where people say, where were you when you heard about this? Just like with my generation is, where were you when JFK was shot? So it's been 15 years as we watched in horror and disbelief as airplanes that were acting as being used as bombs flew into skyscrapers in New York and the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., and an empty field in Pennsylvania. 15 years since close to 3,000 innocent people lost their lives. And our world was changed forever. Because since then, we as a human race have collectively felt less safe and less secure, including the over 1 billion people who share the religion and the culture of the people who perpetrated 9/11. Life has been less safe and less secure for them as well. Because the bottom line is, after September 11, 2001, life as we knew it would never be the same. And there are people who are very, very angry about it still. After 15 years, understandably, there is still such an energy around it, such a sadness and such an anger, so much resentment. And the problem is holding on to resentment and impotent fear that stems every time we think about that event. That anger and that fury and that resentment doesn't do anybody any good. Doesn't do anybody. It's not going to bring back the 3,000 people who lost their lives. It's not going to bring back our easier way of life. It's not going to restore our sense of safety and security. In fact, as I said a couple of months ago, I went to New York City and I went to the 9/11 memorial. And when I came back, I said that I thought it was possible that perhaps this collective anger and this collective resentment that everybody is feeling, or many people are feeling, is actually feeding into the fear and the insecurity and making it worse. Is that making sense? It's certainly not making it any better, because anger and resentment don't make things better. They're low vibration, they're low frequency, they're low thought patterns that only add to that lowest common denominator and keep it in place. So after 15 years, I'd like us to explore the idea that maybe It's time for us to begin practicing forgiveness and release. What do you think? I remember, I wasn't going to share this, but the Spirit's telling me to do it. Right after 9/11 had happened, I've been a minister for about 3 years. And no living minister, no living person in the clergy had ever been through anything like that. I mean, none of us have been through anything like that, but particularly as ministers, not knowing what to say and how to provide comfort to people. And because I'm a good religious scientist and I live what I teach, I immediately went to forgiveness. And I had a gathering of people come to the center. And we were going to have a discussion about it. And I'm all prepared to talk about forgiveness and letting go and everything. And people were furious with me and shouted at me, how could I be talking about forgiveness? How could I be talking about release? Don't I know all of this? People storming out with me going. So I'm taking advantage of the fact that it's 15 years later. And that maybe it's time for us. So please don't run out of here yelling, okay? It's time for us to raise our vibration from one of hatred and fear to one of love and forgiveness. Not because it's going to do something for those who committed that horrific act, but because by not doing it, we are harming ourselves. We are harming ourselves individually and collectively. The old adage, which I love, I use it every time I talk about forgiveness, and that is holding on to resentment is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. Yeah? Because when that resentment is not dealt with, is not released, is not worked through, it festers and it begins to do harm to us. It affects our health, it affects our relationships, it affects our view of the world. Conversely, when we learn to forgive and when we let go of the resentments that are eating at us, it does wonders for health. It does wonders for relationships. It does wonders for how you see the world and how the world responds and interacts back with you. Because we live in a world that is governed by the universal law of cause and effect. And the universal law of cause and effect teaches us that what you think about and what you dwell on and what you project out into the world comes back to you. So if you are projecting anger or resentment or revenge or fear, that's what you're putting out in the world, and that's what continues to show up in the world. Have you noticed that? Yes. By the same idea, when you consciously, that's such an important word, folks. Consciously, it means on purpose, it means deliberately. When you consciously choose to release anger, to release resentment and fear, and replace it with love and acceptance and faith, that is how the world will appear back to you. So the question is, which world do you prefer to live in? One of fear and anger and resentment, or one of love and fear and faith? Because you determine which one you're going to see. You're going to find what you are looking for every time. Ernest Holmes had something to say about forgiveness, as always. He wrote, "Whatever the mistakes of yesterday may have been, today is a new creation. Turning from the errors of the past and no longer carrying with us the sorrows and mistakes of yesterday, today we may enter a new experience. But it is only when we forgive ourselves and everyone else that we may feel certain that the weight of condemnation is lifted from our consciousness. So I could do a whole talk about self-forgiveness too, but I'm not going to do that today. Because this idea of forgiveness is true for all of us, no matter who we might be holding a resentment against. A parent, a boss, a spouse, an ex-spouse, a lover, a friend, a sibling, someone who's done wrong, really seriously harmed us, seriously, or a terrorist, or ourselves. I love this quote by Lewis Smedes that says, "To forgive is to set a prisoner free and discover that the prisoner was you." Now I realize that in many ways I'm preaching to the choir here. Because if you're attracted to a center like this, you already know forgiveness is good for you, right? Is anybody, am I saying anything that nobody's ever heard before? No, absolutely not. We know this stuff. We know this stuff. We know that forgiveness is good, and we do what we're supposed to do. With resentments that we have, at least little ones, you know, those little bothersome ones that come, we have our tools. We meditate, we pray, we deep breathe, we exercise, we punch a pillow. But what about the deep, devastating wounds that have sent you to your knees in grief and anger or sadness? Those that literally altered your life as you knew it. What about those? How do you forgive those? How do you survive it, let alone come from a place of love and forgiveness? I had to give that some thought this week, because I know we have people who have had those situations where it has absolutely brought them to their knees. How do you do that? Well, the first thing you do is to realize that forgiveness is an ongoing process. It's not just something you're going to forgive once and then that's going to be it. When someone asks Master Teacher Jesus how many times to forgive, he said 7. The question asker said 7 because in Judaic law that seemed like a long time. And Jesus replied, you know the answer. How many times did he tell him? 70 times 7. Now he did not mean 490 times, okay? Then you'll have accomplished forgiveness. Okay, 497, check. 490, no, it didn't work like that, right? He meant that forgiveness is a process and it will take the time that it takes. But the good news is, oh my God, this is such good news, is as you are doing the work necessary, just like peeling the layers of the onion back, as you do the work necessary for forgiveness, you are growing in the process. You're not just staying stagnant and forgiving. Every time you forgive, you are expanding yourself so that you're coming from a place that is a higher and more evolved and more expanded point of view. In other words, when you do your forgiveness work, and it is work, I'm sorry, I can't call it forgiveness play. It's forgiveness work. But as you do it and you apply it, you become better, not bitter. So practicing the F word, forgiveness, on a regular and consistent basis is for you. It's not for the other person. It's for you. It is for your soul's evolution and growth. So there's a story, a teaching story. It's my favorite teaching story for forgiveness. Many of you have probably heard it before. It was written by Neil Donald Walsh, and it first appeared in the Conversations with God book. And it's just a powerful parable about forgiveness. So I wanted to share it with you again, but want you to know, first of all, before I share the story, and it's my paraphrase of it, and you know, it's always dangerous when I paraphrase things, because I make stuff up. But anyway, before I do this, though, I want you to know, I hope we don't have any science of mind police in the room here. This is not strict science of mind teaching. It is not. But it is so meaningful that I'm going to risk it anyway, and you're going to forgive me, right? All right. So the story is called The Little Soul and the Sun. Once upon a time, there was a little soul who said to God, I know who I am. And God said, that's wonderful. Who are you? And the little soul shouted, I'm the light. God smiled a big smile and said, yes, you're right. You are the light. And little soul was so happy because it had figured out what souls are intended to figure out when they come to the kingdom. He says, wow, this is really cool. I'm the light. I'm the light. I'm the light. But after a while, the little soul wanted to actually experience itself as the light. It was one thing to know it was light. It was another thing to experience it. So the little soul approached God again and said, I know what I want to do. I want to learn how to be forgiven. I want to experience myself as that. Well, that's good, said God, but there's one thing you need to know. God says there's actually no one to forgive. Everything and everyone I have made is perfect. There's not a single soul in all of creation less perfect than you. Just look around. It was then that the little soul looked around and realized that there was a large crowd that had gathered to listen to this momentous conversation. And none of them appeared less wonderful and less magnificent and less perfect than the little soul itself. All of them were beautiful and incredible lights as well. So God says to the little soul, well then, who shall you forgive? The little soul's kind of discouraged, thought he had this really great idea, right? And now there's nobody to forgive. But just then, a friendly soul stepped forward from the crowd and said, not to worry, little soul. I will help you. I will give you someone to forgive. I will come into your next lifetime and do something for you to forgive. Why, said the little soul, why would you do that? You are a being of utter perfection. What would cause you to slow down your vibration to such a point that your bright light would become dark and dense? What would cause you who are a light that you can dance with the stars, what would cause you to come into my life and to make yourself so heavy in order to do this bad thing? And the friendly soul said, well, it's simple. I would do it because I love you, and I want you to experience who you really are as the light. So I will come into your next lifetime, and I will be the bad one this time. I will do something really terrible, and then you can experience yourself as one who forgives. Well, by now, the little soul's a little nervous and says, well, what will you do that's so terrible? And the friendly soul says with a twinkle, oh, we'll think of something. And then the friendly soul turned serious and said in a quiet voice, you are right about one thing. I will have to slow down my vibration and become very heavy to do this not so nice thing. I will have to pretend to be something very unlike myself. So I have one favor to ask of you. In the moment in the moment that I strike you and smite you, in the moment that I do my worst to you that you could possibly imagine, in that very moment, you need to remember who I am. Because you see, I will have been pretending so hard, I will have forgotten myself. And if you don't remember me as I really am, I may not be able to remember for a really long time. So the little soul responded, of course, I will remember you, and I will thank you for bringing me this gift, the chance to experience myself as who I am, the light. And I will remember to see you for who you really are as well. And so the story continues. And if you choose to believe it, it's your story. And it's my story. We have all been on both sides of this dynamic, whether we realize it or not. We have all been the victim, and we've all been the perpetrator. And so now I ask you, is it possible that the person who harmed you the most was actually a godsend? I know, that one's so hard. Especially for those who have been devastatingly hurt at the hands of someone else. For some people, it may be too soon. Just like the 9/11 when I tried to practice forgiveness, it was too soon. It was too soon. Maybe this is too soon. But if there is the remotest chance that there may be something to this, then just allowing, there's a modicum of a chance that it's true, is the place to start. Because what happens is that if there's just the tiniest little crack in the armor of anger and resentment, the tiniest little crack, then that light of forgiveness can begin to shine through. Because the truth is, underneath it all, each and every one of us is the light. And I see you. I see your light, even with the light in my eyes. I see your light, and I love you. And so.